Now, when you're dealing with data sets in Excel, an important question to ask is, do I have any duplicate records? This is very common when you deal with a real-life data set, that you have extra records, extra duplications in your data set, and this might actually skew your results one way or the other. So if you want to do a correct analysis, you first need to identify and eliminate these duplicate records in your data set. So as it is, we have 24 records here and there are no duplicates. Let's actually create a duplicate here. I'm going to get what we have here in row 9. I'm going to copy that and then insert it here between row 17 and row 19. So now I have a duplicate record here, and even in a small data set like this, it's very hard to identify where that duplicate record is now. I'm going to show you 3 ways of how to eliminate these duplicate records. So let me show you the first way. You go to the data ribbon, you go to the data tools portion, and then you simply click on remove duplicates. It asks you several questions. You don't need to choose anything here. Simply hit OK. And what it does is it says 1 duplicate value is found and removed. 24 unique values remain. And if you look at the data set, you will actually see that Özgür for beer 13, which we had copied here, is now gone. We don't have it here anymore between row 17 and row 18. So this is way 1. This is my least favorite way, because although you find and remove the duplicate record, you have no idea which record it was, where did it go, it's all gone. And if you have duplicate errors occurring a lot and you'd like to identify the source, when you find the duplicate records, you'd like to see what they are so that you can see if you can trace the mistake. So this is definitely not my recommended way of removing duplicates. Now let me show you the second way. Again, we have our row 9 and row 18. They're duplicate rows. Again, you go to the data ribbon, you go to the sort and filter option. You click on advanced. In advanced, you say, well, I'm going to filter this. You can filter the list in place or copy to another location. With duplicate removal, I'd like to actually keep it in place for now. And then you just choose unique records only. You don't need to add anything else here, no criteria range. And then you hit OK. Now, this is a bit better than what we had before, because now I actually see that this is filtered and actually row 18 is skipped. It's an invisible row because row 18 was a duplicate row. So using this option, I actually can get an idea of where the duplicate was. If I want to work with the clean data set, I can copy this and paste it somewhere else. If I want to remove this filter, I go ahead and click on the clear button here, which will clear the filter. And I still get back my duplicate record here. Now that's the second way, which is fairly useful. The third way I want to show you is a bit more convoluted, if you will, but it will highlight some Excel functions. What I will do is I will create a new column. I'll call it combined. In this new column, I'm going to create a simple cell that is a combination of all these 4 cells. So this will read as VJ2 beer 27, this will read as Özgür for food 29, and then I will use that to actually identify the duplicate records. So there are 2 ways of putting different cell values into one cell. So the first one is using the ampersand function. Here's what I do. I take A2 ampersand, B2 ampersand, C2 ampersand, and D2. So what the ampersand does is it treats A2, B2, C2, D2 as text values, and then creates a larger text, just putting one text after the other. So if I hit enter here, you will see that I put all these four values together and I got VJ2 beer 27. And if I double click here, I get the combined record for each value here. So now this is one way of putting text together, the ampersand function. The other way of doing this is using a special Excel function called concatenate, and I'll show you that one too. Again, one feature in Excel that I really like is if you know the beginning of a function, you don't need to remember the whole thing. As you start typing it, it'll tell you different options and it will remind you. So you want the concatenate function. In concatenate function, you choose your texts that are going to be appended to one another. A2, B2, C2, and D2. And then I go ahead and hit enter. This will do the same thing that the ampersand does. As you can see, nothing changed because it's the same idea. Now, how am I going to utilize this to find duplicates? Here's what I will do. I now have a new data set with a fifth column, and then I'm going to sort this data set based on this fifth column, combined column. And when I sort it, as you can see, I actually now can see my duplicate record. And I now know exactly what it is. It's very transparent. Now again, since I have only 24 records here, or 25 records now with the duplicate record, it's easy to spot where the duplicate is. If I want to add one more layer here to show me where the duplicates are, in case I have a larger data set, I can add another column and check for duplicates in the previous column. Here's what I'm going to do. Call this duplicate. What I'll do is I'll use an if function, and the function will say if this value is equal to the value right after it, since it's sorted, those two being equal will show me that I have a duplicate. Otherwise I will say no, not duplicate. Now I'm assuming that most of you know how an if function works, but just in case, let's quickly repeat what the if function does. The if function has three arguments. The first step is a logical test. It asks the question, is a particular relationship true or not? Here I'm testing if E2 and E3 are equal to one another. And then the second argument is what happens if the logical test is true. Then I will like to see the word duplicate. And then the third argument is what happens if the logical test is false. Here I'd like to see the word not duplicate. So I go ahead and hit OK here, and then I copy paste this all the way down. As you can see, I now have my row, which is a duplicate row. I know exactly where the duplicate is. So writing this if function is one way of identifying the duplicates in the previous column. There is a simpler way of doing this in Excel for this particular case. I'm going to show you that one as well. Let's first go ahead and clean this. I highlight it all, I clear contents. So in Excel, as a formula, I can just type this. What this does is it says, give me the result of this comparison. So you're testing whether E2 equals E3, and you're saying give me the result. So this will give you a logical result. It will either give you a false or a true. So if I copy paste this, you will see that it's mostly false, but I have true here. Why? Because E5 and E6 are equal to one another. So this is another way of looking at this. Now again, it's easy to spot the true here, the duplicate one here, since I have 24 entries. But what if I had 1,000? Could I find a quick way of seeing the problematic records? So here's what I can do. I can actually format this column and tell this column, well, if the value is false, don't change format, but if the value is true, I'd like you to give me the value in a different format so that I can be more vigilant about it. Here's how I have formatting in a column or in a cell based on certain conditions. So I go to the home ribbon. In the home ribbon, under the styles option, you actually have this conditional formatting tool. So I'm going to highlight the entire column and I'm going to go to conditional formatting. It says, well, tell me highlight style rules. You can highlight a cell where if it's greater than a value or less than a value, numeric or non-numeric, if it's equal to 1, etc., or even date-related stuff. I'm going to say equal to, and then I will say if the cell value is true, as you can see, we already have the format, then the default is usually light red fill with dark red text, but there are other options here. And you can even create your custom formatting. And then I hit OK. Now here I have a big visual cue that tells me that, well, there is something wrong here because there is a red value. And in fact, let's say I had thousands and thousands of records. Then if I have this and I want to see how often I have a duplicate record, what I usually do is I write my formula and create my conditional formatting, and then I zoom out. And when you zoom out, you get to see many, many more rows, but you still see that, I mean, you don't see the actual values anymore, but you still see that red formatting, which really gives you a sense of how often you have a duplicate record. This could come in very handy.